Let me try that again. Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a great Monday afternoon. I think we're good to go here. We're live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, Instagram. We can put Ion on pause. Comments are on. Instagram comments are on. I know I have a different screen today. A different visual look today. And why is that? Well, because I had to turn my desk around because I'm shooting another podcast after this. I'll tell you about it in a minute. No, it's not true. At the end of the episode, I will tell you about it. And I have a guest coming live into the podcast studio, which is my office. So it took some reconfiguration. You don't get the beautiful background that you normally get, but you will get it on the next show that you see, should you stay and join to listen to us. I would love someone to come in and tell me that the audio is working well. Hopefully it is. Either way, we're live and recording, so let's get started as we wait for people to join. Last night, I got to tell you, last night I was out on the deck. No, Saturday night, I was out on the deck. I was having a cigar, glass/bottle of wine, and I did something I couldn't have done only 2 months ago. I coded. I vibe coded. I've never coded anything in my life. What would I know about coding? And what I mean by that is, what I built was an app. I wanted to build an app. So we now have a website app. And what it is it's focused on business valuation. So you can code in historical earnings, not code it, just fill in the boxes. Historical earnings, all your balance sheet categories, your valuation date, all sorts of different things. And, sound is good on Facebook. Thank you for that, Ashley. You can put that all there. It calculates discounts, like personal goodwill, and it gives you an estimate of your valuation. And I coded that, by vibe coding. So really, you just have the coding artificial intelligence. You talk to it, it asks you questions. And of course, I know what I want. You have to know what you want. You have to know how to do it. But I built this app really without any difficulty whatsoever. I did it a couple hours Saturday night, couple hours last night, all over a cigar, and it works great. I have some fine tuning to do, but when I am done, I'll be releasing that on thescottsinclair.com, thescottsinclair.com. I also built, as a completely separate matter, in my spare time, 2 full websites that are fantastic. I'm really happy with both of them. The leverage that exists today for businesses, medium, of all sizes, I usually say medium and small businesses, but for all size, the leverage that exists today is astonishing. And if you're not using that, you are not competing. You are going to fall behind. All right, that's enough time for people to join in. Welcome to the Winning Momentum The Winning Momentum Podcast, where we do a week in review at Sinclair Range Show. And my name is Scott Sinclair. I am the owner and president, founder of Sinclair Range. And the mission here is to give you some insights into what's been going on at Sinclair Range, your window into real world deals, decisions, day-to-day business adventures. And when I try to structure these shows, I structure them in the usual segments, being interesting file or deal of the week, lessons learned of the week, struggles of the week, and my musing, Scott's observation. Now, if you've been listening to this content for the last 6-9 months, not just this show, but other content that I do, you will know that I have been, and Sinclair Range has been heavily focused on private credit in Canada. So what is this? This is distressed high yield loans that go to businesses that are looking to pay out their senior financing. They've got to get rid of their bank. There are special loans, or debtor in possession financing. We've talked about a lot. Secured growth capital. Any business that's going through a transition for any reason, good reasons, bad reasons, high growth, distress, it doesn't really matter. Well, I've been talking about this in a Canadian context because the thesis has been that there is $1 billion to $1.5 billion hole in the Canadian marketplace. And all you have to do is look at the funds that used to exist and used to have capital and do the math on what exists now and who has capital now. And there's a real problem. And as an intermediary, as an advisor to these businesses, you have to go to the US for money very often. It's not a robust market like it used to be in the Canadian marketplace. And so we've been working on that. And as you know, I've been talking about that forever. And as you know, we have been working on trying to tackle that problem ourselves at Sinclair Range, specifically to launch a new private debt fund in Canada. And, another part of this thesis that I've talked about is what we believe to be at Sinclair Range, just an onslaught of merging of capital and services. That's one of our primary thesis hypotheses here at Sinclair Range, that this is just going to grow. And we're seeing it in the US. And of course, in our industry, like most industries in Canada, you're about 5 to 7 years behind what's happening in the US. And in the US, you're having private equity groups buy up services firm, accounting firms, law firms are doing roll-ups in those sectors. They have cracked that code. We had multiple calls last year from U.S. private equity funds to purchase Sinclair Range, which, if you are a listener of this show, you will know that's a bit of a joke. But nonetheless, there's capital looking to buy services, and the merging of service and capital, I think, is a real thing that is happening. So we've been out trying to raise a fund, and for about 6 months, we've been talking to lenders and family offices and equity providers that want to be debt providers and to partner with somebody. And it's been a long, difficult process. There's no doubt about that. More than I thought. Now, in fairness, I think everything's going to be easy. Yeah, we can do that. That's not a problem. It's been a long process. It took longer than I wanted to take. But big news announcing it came together last week. We have a capital commitment, we have the right partner, and we have formed Interim Credit Corp. Interim Credit Corp, which is a partnership between Mark Wilk, if you're from my Toronto audience, even Canadian audience, many of you Americans, they all know Mark Wilk. Mark Wilk might be, I describe him as the best business development guy ever in any industry, not just our industry. He's a fantastic business development, easy for me to say. He's a fantastic BD guy. And one of the reasons that he's a fantastic BD guy is not just his work ethic, his personality, but he also knows his shit. He can do the underwriting if he has to do that. And when you combine these things, you become a terrific business development person. Well, it's a partnership between Wilk Capital Group, which is Mark Wilk, and Sinclair Range. And so we own about half, well, not about half, we own half of this entity, and we're funded. So we've launched Interim Credit. We've gone to market with that announcement. And what Interim Credit does is doing fully collateralized, so fully secure financing for businesses in transition, as I described: bridge loans, debtor in possession loans, turnaround operating capital, receivables inventory facilities, special situations, whatever it is. Reach out to us, give us a call. Let's talk about your deal. We're trying to focus on $1 to $10 million facilities, industry agnostic, structure to fit. Now, we do have the capability to scale beyond those numbers, but that's what we're trying to focus on. And the idea here is to deliver to you certainty and speed, where traditional bank credit isn't available. Is your business going through a transition? Do you need capital? Do you know someone that is? Reach out to us. Let's have a conversation about it. Have you ever had to deal with, just let me check my comments here on Instagram. Have you ever had to deal with these merchant advance companies? I've seen multiple of these on many deals in the last couple of years. I'm pretty sure we've even talked about them on this show before, or maybe in related content. But let's assume you're a small business or a medium-sized business owner. Even you're up against it. Payroll's due next week. You don't have the cash. You can go to one of these lenders who advance money, and you're going to pay a high rate, an extraordinarily high rate, but they're going to advance you the money. And you think that's a wonderful thing. You got your payroll, you paid your supplier for whatever, and this is a good trade. And typically, the due diligence that these merchant advance people do is that you just basically send in 6 months of your bank financial statement, your bank statements from your business, and they calculate the cash deposits, and then they advance you some magical percentage of that. I sort of know the advance rate, but I'm not going to talk about it here on the air. But that's what they do, and so that's their entire due diligence. And they do it quickly, and it gets the company out of a bind, theoretically, or maybe you're just going to Vegas with the money. Who the hell knows? That does happen. They may or may not take security over the business. They may ask for personal guarantees, but that's generally the product. And so you need money right now. So you go and get that. Let's make up a number, $60,000, and you get the money into your account like right away, and everything's happy. You made your payroll, and you got over your little financial difficulty for a period of time. And what they do to get their money back is they do a direct debit from your business account every single week, sometimes every day, but at least every week. They're just go in and they're taking out $1,142.68. There's a magic math behind that. I just made up that number, by the way, kids. So they take out a number directly from your account every week. It's such a small number, you don't even really notice. It's no big deal. And because it's structured that way, it is impossible to figure out, not impossible, it's very difficult to understand the implied interest rate, even on a compounded, on a simple basis, never mind a compound basis. It reminds me of auto leasing when that product first started back in the 90s. Remember, I used to go to the auto dealer when I was a young finance professional, and I go, hey, I'm interested in that BMW. And they go, yeah, cool. So you can lease that for $598 a month. And you go, wow, I can afford $598 a month. And then you say to the guy, what's the interest rate? And he'd say, no, it's $598 a month. You go, oh, okay. Well, what about the terminal value at the end of this 3-year lease? How does that work? Well, no, it's $598 a month. That's all they knew. That's all they could say. There was no thought about the implied interest rate, the terminal value, because you're supposed to be so stupid that you can't figure it out. These merchant advance people remind me of this. So if you're this hypothetical company, you've taken this $60,000. Now what happens? A few months later, you're like, oh, I'm out of money again, because you haven't fixed your underlying problems. So what do? You go get a second merchant advance loan from one of these people, a different company, obviously, because apparently there's no rules about layering these. And you can see where this is going. You start doing it, and I've seen companies with 5, 6 different merchant advance companies on their balance sheet, all laying on top, layered on top of each other. Got calls coming in here. I got to put a hang up to Mark Wilk here, our business partner on Interim Credit. So where was I? So they're layered up, and they're taking money out every week or every day, as I said. And Mark is really trying to push this through. Screwing up where's my notes? There we go. And so what can you do about it? And now you're sucking money out of the account, 5 or 6 of these merchant advance lenders, and you don't have any money left at all, and you can't borrow money from another one. So what do you do about it? Well, the only answer that I have is we just put stop payments on all of them, because you need to do what you need to do to protect your business. And if you don't have money for them to debit, and you can't run your business, you can't make payroll, you can't pay suppliers, it's just you've hit a wall, you're done. So you got to put a stop payment on them. And so that's what we do. And we've done it on clients before. And it's obviously a default under the agreement with these merchant advance people, but it's not the end of the world in this. Well, listen, we're not your lawyers. Don't listen to us, okay? Talk to your lawyer about this. But in my experience, the merchant advance companies have done nothing about it. They threaten, it goes to collections. There's all sorts of ugly noise back and forth, but nobody has actually sued on that until now. Now we have a client right now that's just been sued. There was an advance of $15,000, and this merchant advance company is collecting $20,850 in daily debits over about 90 days. Okay. So what's the math on that? The math on that, simple interest, is over 100% annualized, over 100% interest on this loan. And if you compound it, it comes out to a crazy number. I think it starts like around 500%. And you may ask yourself, Scott, how the hell is that legal? Is that legal? Well, these contracts are not written to be loan agreements. What they're written to be is a purchase and sale agreement of future receivables. Well, what is a future receivable? Who the hell knows? They say they're buying an accounts receivable. And when you buy an asset, if you buy that asset at a discount and then you happen to sell it 90 days later or collect the economic value out of that asset 90 days later, and that gives you a profit and internal rate of return exceeding 500%, well, that's not a loan. It's not a criminal interest rate. But is it really a purchase of a future receivable? Can you buy something that doesn't even exist today? Remember, the due diligence is backward-looking cash flow into the bank account. No one's ever says, hey, what's your accounts receivable? Can you send me a list and we'll put a schedule of those into this purchase and sale agreement? That doesn't happen. Nobody says, send me a list of future receivables, which you could do through future invoicing. That doesn't happen. What they do is, whether you're collecting a receivable or not, they're taking money out of your bank account. So there's a complete disconnect between what the paper says and what really happens. They're taking security over the assets of the business, or personal guarantees in many, many cases, not all cases, but in many cases they are. And that's not what happens on a purchase of a receivable, a future receivable agreement. The deal has nothing to do with receivables, but that is the way to get around. It is a loan, in my view, in substance. Again, we are not your legal counsel. And it would seem to me, if anybody ever sued in the merchant advance world, a borrower, and a borrower was able to win at that and set some precedents, that this entire industry would fall apart. Am I wrong? If you're a lawyer, tell me in the comments. I don't see how the industry stands. It's going to fall apart because somebody's going to break the seal, and we're going to start litigating as an industry on this. And I think it's all going to fall apart. Now, I haven't been able to find any case law in this industry in Canada at all. Remember, Sinclair Range is not legal counsel, but, we try to do some research and try to understand our various positions. And so that's what's going on here. What is a criminal interest rate? We think it's a loan. Well, depends on the size of the loan, but let's say for a rule of some 48%, this far exceeds that. In our view, the agreements are illegal. They're unenforceable. And I think that in this case, the lenders should be paying back all of the money to the borrowers. That's what we're going to try to accomplish in this lawsuit. We'll see how it goes. Have you ever had a situation where it turns out your friends are not your friends? Everybody's had that situation. People are supposed to be on your side, don't always act that way. It's the old saying, it's not what you don't know that gets you, it's the things you know for sure that turn out to just not be true. Do you know that old saying? Same with your friends, right? Last week, we've had a situation brewing, actually for a couple of weeks now, with a court-appointed monitor on a CCAA filing, where we also do a bunch of work on that file in coordination with the monitor on a day-to-day basis. And you just take some reliance that the monitor in Canada is almost always a CPA, an accountant, and that they're an officer of the court, and that they're going to behave with integrity and honesty. And we're dealing with this group. And last week, we get this urgent, extremely plaintive legal letter from the monitor saying that Sinclair Range is withholding financial information and causing whatever problems, which is just demonstratively not true. It is so untrue. It's actually the opposite. We don't have the information, but the monitors have this information at all times. It's really a crazy allegation. And it's basically, as near as I can tell, I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but it seems to me this is a consolidation of power play by the monitor and an effort not to pay us. That's what it seems to be. They're definitely not paying us. And so I don't know what their motivation is, but you rely on people to play their roles, and this is what happens from time to time. It's no big deal. Listen, business is a competitive sport. Never forget that. Elbows up, as we say, and then we don't do it in Canada, but elbows up. And we had another example of a lawyer. We have a client, and that client has a dedicated, almost in-house lawyer. And the two of us are servicing that client. Sinclair Range from a financial point of view, the lawyer from a legal point of view, obviously. And with hindsight, what we learned last week is that this this lawyer has been trying to ring fence and isolate the client for their own benefit. In other words, not just us, everybody, all other advisors around this client, family members, this lawyer has been trying to isolate this person. And one might argue that the reason for that would be for personal economic gain of that lawyer. I'm not saying it's true. That is true, but from the outside, you could certainly speculate reasonably that that is the reason for that. And so to ring fence this client, they have to get rid of us, Sinclair Range. And so how do they get rid of us? And you know what, this is not my first time that I've seen this with legal counsel in my career. I've always described it way back to when I started Merchant Capital in the 90s is I want to be the person when you wake up in the middle of the night and you have a problem or there's an emergency during the day, you call me, you call Scott. That's how I built my career. I don't care what the problem is. It could be business, it could be investment banking, rental, it could be capital needs, cash flow, right along my lines. It could be legal, which is not my line. It could be personal, which I have nothing to do with. I want the client to wake up and feel like they should call me because I give such a terrific level of service and sane advice that we can take to the relevant professionals. That's what I look for. And there's many lawyers that try to build that type of relationship with their clients. And so if we have the same client and I might be the finance person and they might be the legal person, but we're still competing. We're still competing for that first phone call, that trust of the client. So I've seen this before. And so I'm used to this happening. But what the lawyer ends up doing in this situation, I thought was pretty extreme, is they ended up purposely torpedoing deals that the client was in the middle of. And by doing so, put the client at significant financial risk. And near as I could tell, I haven't been inside behind the scenes to prove this, but near as I can tell, it seems to have been a purposeful move. I'm not talking about who the client is or who the lawyer is. I'm not even making that as an allegation. I'm just giving you my observations from afar. So look, in business, in life, it doesn't pay to go through life or business paranoid. But that does not mean they're not after you. What do? Don't get emotional. Make the changes required. Do so quickly. And do it all in writing. It's really important in these situations, both of those situations I described, just to create a paper trail. If you can do a calm, professional, business-like paper trail with facts, you start to win these people over. And at least you've covered yourself if it goes further sideways. And so we're winning that. But it's been eye-opening. It's been eye-opening. So as I mentioned, after I sign off from this show, in about an hour or two, I'll be recording a podcast with Fernie City Councillor Harshan Ramadas. He's running for mayor in the municipal elections this October, and I will be producing, maybe we'll do one show a month with him where we do a deep dive into infrastructure issues, of which we have many, many of in this city. There are many infrastructure issues in this city. And episode 1, which we're shooting today, and it should be out pretty quickly, is on wastewater, sewage for the city. It's a hell of a story. So last December 2025, our town discharged 24,000 cubic meters of raw sewage into the local river, a big river that goes right through town here, the Elk River. People swim in this river, they fish in it, they raft in that river. The river goes downstream, obviously. It hits Lake Koocanusa eventually, which is so it's a headwater here, and that goes down into Montana. And so 24,000 cubic meters of sewage is about 10 Olympic swimming pools full of raw sewage, untreated raw sewage. And the testing afterward in this river blew past provincial safety standards for E. coli, fecal chloroform, all sorts of horrible things. And the point of the story, apart from the terrible ecological incident disaster, is that the city knew this was going to happen for close to 15 years now. And there's been a succession of reports of British Columbia, the provincial environmental people giving warnings of small discharges into the river and larger discharges in the river, all leading up to December 25. 15 years in a small city, but with a budget of $35 million. We're not a poor city here. Taxes going up 15% a year. And what the hell are we doing about it? And the answer seems to be nothing. That's what we're going to talk about on this podcast. It's the same disease that I see in distressed businesses. It's not a money problem. It's an execution problem. You just don't do anything. And why? Because it's complex. And complexity creates paralysis in incompetent people. You need to find a way to break through that. You go back to first principles. We use that to turn around a business, and it applies just the same to a town. Accountability, competence, delivering. These are universal concepts. And so that podcast will be shot later today and shortly be available on all of my channels. All right, well, that's a wrap for today. Thanks for listening. Hey, you need some money in your business in transition? Reach out to us. Reach out to us. We exist to help navigate high growth, navigate financial distress, do deals. I don't know if we're going to talk to you next week. I think I'm on the road, but we'll see how that goes. Enjoy your Canada Day week. Enjoy your July 4th week, Independence Day. Everybody have a wonderful summer holiday week, and we'll chat when we chat.